All right, we're going to be moving on now to contemporary views of leadership. The views of leadership used to be more power-oriented, but they've changed. And more recently, they're seen more as an opportunity to learn and grow, and something you're never done doing, personal journey, where you're just kind of developing your character and yourself. 'Cause it's not just about the way you act with other people; it's more now about who you are. Um, so we're going to look at more some of those kinds of theories. A very basic idea on leadership is that it's transactional. This is actually one of the definitions we talked about at the very beginning of the class about how it can be seen simply as an exchange between leaders and followers. This is really commonly used, but it's very basic. I am not particular to it because I feel like it doesn't really break down anything about leadership. But there are some good things about it. It kind of can break down different kinds of transactions. It can either be one where you're giving rewards or punishments. It can be where you're management by exception, but the active kind where you are always watching to see what people are doing wrong so you can get them for it. Whereas there's passive management by exception, which is where you're just doing your thing, and then you step in when you see things getting out of control, when standards aren't being met. Management by exception is obviously the passive kind, is more would be more acceptable to the followers, and is just would be a much more positive place to work. But there are different ways of doing transactional leadership. Transformational leadership is my favorite kind of leadership because it is about becoming instead of just doing. And as a transformational leader, you're also trying to help other people become. So they begin to see things for the collective whole rather than just for themselves. Some components of transformational leadership. Charisma. You kind of can't be a transformational leader if you don't have that charisma. If you're not visionary, if you don't inspire people, if you aren't charming and easy to talk to, a transformational leader is pretty much always somebody who's easy to follow. Then there's the inspiration and motivation. This is helping people feel inspired to do better and motivated to do what they can to be better. Then there's individualized consideration. Transformational leader never works with somebody as they always know who they're talking with, and they work with them as individuals and talk to them as they would like to be spoken to. And then last but not least, intellectual stimulation. They're always challenging the norm, trying to help people get a new paradigm shift to see things from a better point of view. Transformational leadership is really where we all want to be. We all want to have that charisma. We want to inspire people and motivate them to do better. We want them to feel like we're dealing with them as people and that we care about them, that we consider them individuals and love them. And we also want to be stimulated. We want people that we oversee to feel like they can do better and to learn new things. And be able to see things from a different point of view because of our leadership. This is the goal right here, to be a transformational leader. And we'll refer back to it many times this semester as we look at examples, positive examples. They might not all be the same, but they all usually have these four components if they are the kind of person who would be considered a transformational leader. When it comes to being a transformational leader, you have to be aware of things. Self-aware. You need to be able to know how you feel about things. You need to be able to be aware of what you're good at and what you're not good at, what your strengths are, have a sense of purpose. You also need to be aware of your feelings. You need to be able to control your feelings. I have made the mistake, I've learned the hard way, basically, that if you don't manage yourself emotionally, people will not follow you because you look, frankly, immature if you can't control your feelings. If you get really angry about things and aren't able to stay level feeling, then you can make people feel put out or uncomfortable. You need to be able to regulate your mood. If you have a bad day when you show up at work, you can't let that bad day ruin everyone else's day. You also have to be motivated, self-motivated to do better. That's pretty self-explanatory, and you'd expect that from a good leader, somebody who's excited about their job and motivated to do better. You have to have empathy. You need to be able to appreciate and feel bad about other people's situations and try to see things from their point of view. You also need to be aware of what they offer, what they bring to the table, instead of only seeing what they don't. Being able to make you like, this is your strength, and so I'm going to put you in a place that's going to use that strength. And then relationship management. You need to be able to manage relationships, have relationships of trust with your employees, but not let it get too personal. It's very easy to get too personal, especially if you are afraid of being the bad guy. You need to be able to be the bad guy as a leader. Unfortunately, you need to be able to tell people when they're doing things wrong, and that's sometimes the most unpleasant part of being a leader. But it is part of it, and an important part of it. That's transformational leadership, and it's a good goal for all of us to have. We're going to take a quick look at leadership styles. Going back, we talked about it at the beginning of the class when we talked about leadership functions and the different things that make up a leader, the leader, or yourself, the group, and the setting. When it comes to being a leader, though, you're going to, again, this goes right back to a balance of concern for people and a concern for production. The autocratic is the command style of leadership. This is more concerned with production, kind of like exploitative autocratic from the Likert continuum, where it's really your way or the highway. You don't really get any input from the people that you oversee. The communication is always to them, not from them to you. They don't have any choice whether or not they comply. Versus democratic, which is completely the opposite, where it's similar to participative, whereas everybody agrees, everybody has their input, everybody plays a role in the decision making. And this, kind of like the Likert continuum, is also on its own continuum, the Tannenbaum and Schmidt continuum of leadership behaviors. You're going from one end of the extreme, from democratic over here, where everyone has a say and there's a lot of freedom for subordinates and they can kind of manage themselves, to autocratic, where managers totally in charge, not any input or much input from the people that are participating or the subordinates, and they don't have much freedom. They're told what to do. And there are steps along this way. You can obviously, you're not usually one end or the other, and it doesn't necessarily mean that one is worse than the other. Perhaps working in a democratic environment is more pleasant, but it doesn't mean that autocratic is unnecessary at times. But it's important to be able to relate all three of these: the managerial grid, the Likert continuum, and this Tannenbaum and Schmidt one, that they are all based on participation or on a focus on people or on production. It really just depends on the time and on your leadership style, and there are good and bad ways to do both. So that's it for leadership theories. Some of these, this is fairly important. We'll be referring back to it a lot, so please make yourself comfortable with it.